There is a pervasive misunderstanding about Putin's red lines. They're not just warnings about boundaries, they're a post-truth instrument of manipulation designed to paralyze us. In the West, we often swing between two kinds of magical thinking. Either we believe that any substantial increase of support for Ukraine will trigger World War III, or we believe that Putin has no red lines, rendering all his threats empty. Both are illusions that play into Putin's hands. Instead of magical thinking, we'll look at the four key features of Putin's red line rhetoric and what lies behind them. From day one, the Biden administration adopted a precautionary approach to Putin's red line rhetoric. Act as if we can't fully understand Putin's motives or endgame. While understandable, this played into Putin's hands. It's understandable because Western leaders are trying to stand up to Putin under conditions of democratic crisis at home. And it's understandable because of the problems of democratic turnaround. By the time one administration begins to grasp a tyrant's intent, they clear off, a new administration comes in and often starts from scratch. But it played into Putin's hands because knowing your enemy helps you defeat them. Now, since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine, I've argued that the West's overcautious approach has proved counterproductive. We have provided significant support for Ukraine, but partly out of concern for the Kremlin's red lines, it's been too little, it's come too late, and it's left Ukraine in dire straits. My argument, if it's to be reasonable, has to be based on two analyses. First, what's Putin's red line rhetoric all about? And two, what actually lies behind that rhetoric. So let's look at that now. In my analysis, Putin's red lines have four key characteristics. First, deliberate ambiguity. They are intentionally undefined in public. Two, post-truth manipulation. The Putin's regime red line rhetoric comes out in vague and contradictory statements. And these statements reflect the chief hallmark of Russian propaganda, letting go of consistency and saturating the informational environment with contradictory messages. And the goal of this is depoliticization, so that overwhelmed by these contradictions, Westerners disengage and ask, well, who on earth can figure this out? The third characteristic is monarchical secrecy, so that even members of Putin's regime are kept in the dark about the regime's red lines. And their genuine uncertainty is meant to amplify uncertainty in the West. And I can tell you that it seemed to me that second-order members of the Putin regime around September 2022 may have been exposed to rumors that the regime may use nuclear weapons as a piece of political manipulation. And the fourth characteristic is domestic audience focus. Often these threats are aimed at Russian citizens, painting the US as an imperial aggressor and Russia as a defender of noble values. The politics behind these tactics aims to use a "we're unpredictable, don't mess with us" gambit to keep Western support for Ukraine minimal enough for Russia to prevail. Now, here is the key takeaway. What we've just said means that adhering to or violating Russia's publicly stated red lines becomes an incoherent concept. There is no way to respect or violate a red line that is not a red line, but a set of contradictory messages put out into the informational environment to paralyze us. Adhering to a red line like that is like trying to stay on the right side of a road that doesn't exist. And so, we need to look at what actually lies behind the Kremlin's red line rhetoric. In my assessment, Putin's own understanding of his red lines is that it is tied to regime security and his perception of his regime's security. When Putin talks about threats to Russian sovereignty or existential dangers, he's talking about threats to his regime, which he equates, by the way, with threats to his physical body. When that kind of threat is not there, as it isn't there in Kursk, the Kremlin remains uncannily relaxed, even if it's ceding territory. So if all of that's true, what does it mean for us in the West in practical terms? Here are our practical takeaways. Number one, acknowledge the existence of red lines. Arguing that Putin has no red lines at all actually hurts the credibility of any pro-Ukrainian position. It's an argument that Western leaders can't take seriously, especially when nuclear risk is at play. Two, recognize that there is no magical ticket out of escalation risk. While a cornered Putin might be more nuclearly dangerous, unchecked Putinite aggression also elevates nuclear risk. Three, reject appeasement. Appeasing Putin has consequences in the Middle East, in the Taiwan Straits, and it won't stop him escalating on European territory. 4. Recognize the need for a coherent strategy. Deciding which risks are worth taking requires a strategy, because what risks you should take is connected with a big picture understanding of what it is that you're trying to do. But if you're not trying to do anything strategically, then it's not clear what risks you should take. The West currently lacks a strategy toward Russia-Ukraine, and in my analysis, unfortunately, it can only make limited progress rectifying this. It's a painful realization that without addressing our own democratic incapacity, formulating an effective response to a Russo-Chinese alliance trying to change borders in Europe by force will prove elusive, as will an effective response to Putin's red line rhetoric.